This is the peak Destiny player. You may not like it, but this is what perfection looks like. No other human on Earth has ever been able to do what I have done. I have played 24 hours of Gambit, and now I am the top 0.1% in the world, not just for quick play, oh no, but now Gambit too. Allow me to grace your pathetic mortal minds with knowledge. Welcome to Stupid Build. Today I'll be playing builds suggested by you all in the community, then giving them a rating based on my experience as a professor and off meta. All of the builds you will see today will be linked in the description, so after you get the 411 here, check them out there. If the build maker didn't specify anything, I will also try to fill them out with things like armor mods, fragments, etc. with choices that made sense. These were all recorded on our Twitch, where I'll be giving away a Chipotle gift card to a random follower. Alright, self-indulgent self-plugging aside, I need to roast your builds mercilessly like Gordon Ramsay in the back kitchen of a Chuck E. Cheese. No one likes Gambit, right? But the one thing you have to commend it on is its requirements on builds. Gambit builds need to not only have good burst DPS, not only have good ad clear, but also have an answer for PvP invaders or invading yourself. This build by Benji offered all three, and it's maybe the 24 hours of Gambit Marathon Stockholm Syndrome speaking, but be damned if I didn't have fun with this build. This build's bread and butter was the Peregrine Greaves and the Monte Carlo. The idea was simply to just run around pretending to be Captain Falcon from Super Smash Bros. With every button broken except for forward aerial. My Monty supplies the fuel to the engine of one button ass kicking I was handing out like my knees are on clearance, and even though Titans are to me like flying is to a fish, I was ending more bloodlines with my divinely appointed shield-bearing kneecaps than Napoleon. But of course, why not share the love by spreading damage around with controlled demolition, making my abilities cause enemies to explode like they cork themselves after an all-you-can-eat day of Taco Bell, better enhanced by using a destabilizing rounds shotgun. Of course, this build had its drawbacks. Melees in Destiny 2 can sometimes be as consistent as trying to perform surgery on a kayak, not to mention also the Titan that gifted me this build was running alongside me, and surprise, surprise, he knew how to monkey better than me. I felt I was constantly competing for the sweet release of dopamine with him, and I often lost. Ironically, this ends up being to the build's benefit, because if I can somehow find the ability to lower my IQ to run this build even further, then I can hit even harder. Fun fact, the Primeval's health gates can be ignored if you deal a large chunk of damage near its breakpoint. Something like a kneecap would be great for doing. We spent most of our time trying to see how much we could kick it over that line, like skipping a rock with the balls of the Taken Ogre. I didn't encounter PvP that often, but if my degree in PvPology can tell you anything, it's that Monty isn't the greatest of PvP, but it's far from bad. Of course, shotguns will always be decent, as well as one-shot kneecaps being a recipe for hate mail. This build is like the ATV of Titan builds. It handled any situation, PvE and PvP, with relative ease. I strongly recommend giving this a try. 8.5 out of 10, with an incredible balance of offensive and defensive splits. But not all builds are going to be winners like this one, as this next build by Smelly Mayo was designed with no other goal than my suffering in mind. Double special loadouts are effectively designed out of the meta now. Unless you are playing private matches where the ammo drops are set to the old system, enemies will not drop anything for you to use. So, what do you think my experience was trying to take this stick and a green laser pointer was? If you guessed that it was a miserable experience that I wouldn't wish upon the worst person, you would be right. You know what all gamers love to do. That's right, it's wait around. And when you get a loadout that basically requires you to hover around a special ammo box, you are guaranteed to cause anguish on a biblical level. To make matters worse, I was given the worst glaive in the game, the Warlock's exclusive exotic Edge of Intent. Do you think I ever saw the healing turret? Ever? Once? No, of course not. I would have a better chance 1v1ing a full-size polar bear than getting this glaive to be functional. I truly believe that someone at Bungie was hired on as an intern that had a thing for a support Warlock and didn't know the first damn thing about weapon balance. The only saving grace to this train wreck of a weapon was that it's one shot into one melee for a kill. So I basically had a BB gun with a dull bayonet. The only saving grace to this Frankenstein of garbage was the trace rifle that I was fortunate enough to be drip-fed ammo scraps like Tiny Tim with a Glock. It was actually decently competitive. Oh, but let's keep the ironic torture rolling by giving the funny streamer man Vesper of Radius on Prismatic Warlock with no way to activate it. I fear for what kind of mentally unstable mind would cook up such a horrid, undercooked slab of poor taste. But you know what, Smelly Mayo? You lost. Did you not remember that I am literally him? I took your turd on a stick build and not only went positive, but also landed second on the leaderboard. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, you laugh. Nay, I defy you. One must imagine Sisyphus thriving. You lose, sir. Good game. 3 out of 10. I need to decompress, remind myself what happiness feels like, and this hunter build promised me exactly that. As we all know, aiming is for poor people, but hunters often struggle to live by that philosophy. This build by Mad Residents used a grenade launcher with the disruption break, which, fun fact, grants the single largest individual weapon damage bonus in the game of 50%. Now, you might argue that the other perks give this same amount of bonus, but the difference here is that this is a debuff, which means that this stacks with other sources, something that the other perks can't do. Landing a half-decent shot gave our swapped to weapon this buff, and for us, we used and capitalized on it with the hip fire of a DMT. Depending on how good my shot was, I was able to immediately clean someone out before they even processed what just hit them. My only problem was that I must have lost my grenade launcher aim somewhere back in Gambit. I kept whiffing shots like a professional wine judge. But despite my poor aim, the DMT felt great. I could consistently maintain strafe speed and outspace most weapon types with ease. I earnestly believe that a good player with DMT would outduel most other contenders, assuming you have space to use its movement. To make sure my swap was fast and accessible, the build creator had me use the speed loader slacks. This added a much needed coating of handling and reload speed, but just in case things got hairy, they also had me run this on Arc Hunter with flow state and lethal current. The potential for this build is astronomical, and more than that, I was having fun, a lot of fun, making the combo work. DMT might be a bit of a sleeper pick, so if you have some secretly cracked build using it, I would love to see it in the comments. I wish I was better with this build, but the potential is clearly here, but Gambit's still my thumbs. An overly conservative rating of 7 out of 10, though with amazing defense. Alright, let's whiplash back to a build I am not such a fan of. I am confident that Draculady is either trying to troll me, or they're a higher being. The only person on planet Earth I have ever seen make a glaive and a bow work is Henra, but that's really unfair to expect such skills from me because Henra's from the medieval times. No mere mortal is capable of making this sticks and stones looking ass build work. I likely have more bow and glaive kills than 90% of the population, and I can assure you that both of these weapons would rather swap into a normal weapon for you to follow up on rather than into themselves. Swapping two setup weapons together is like making a quesadilla with 2 tortillas and no cheese. Do I like the taste of straight tortilla? Sure. Would I prefer it with almost anything else on the planet? Absolutely. This build ran the entire setup together with the Stasis Titan, once again leading me to believe that this is a thinly veiled attempt to yet again cause me to seek therapy. While I love Stasis Titan, I love it like someone loves a crippled puppy. It's adorable, but it would be cruel of me to ask it to do anything like play fetch. I really don't have much more to say here. This build felt like it was fighting me more than it was fighting my enemy. I spent the entire match in the liminal space between existential crisis and midlife crisis. I can't in good conscience give this build any high marks, even though I really do believe the build creator meant for me to like it. 4 out of 10. By far, the best thing about the double special build from earlier was the trace rifle. This archetype of special weapon has struggled immensely in the meter system due to the abysmal uptime, but the new 111 special ammo system allows it to actually have some ammo on spawn, which may not seem like much of a buff, but when every other special weapon type is asking for some type of extreme range commitment, the trace rifle's ability to be generally better than all primaries in almost every single range makes it quite scary. Kenzie's build used a forgotten about trace rifle, the Wave Splitter. Wave Splitter's TTK actually slightly fluctuates due to its slightly fluctuating damage. For most firefights, unnoticeable, but every once in a while, you will catch a lucky streak and lay out an opponent faster than normal. This allows its already advantageous trade with every other primary in the game to be sometimes a downright cheat. Of course, Wave Splitter gets further benefit after picking up an orb, increasing its damage and suppressing targets. The suppression won't work on supers, but being able to deny a hunter their ability to clone dodge, a titan their ability to melee, or a warlock's ability to whatever is frankly jarring. With this, we have a weapon capable of turning off primary and ability fights, save only for the chance we miss our shots. The build creator stopped here, but I see potential. What if we had orbs all the time? What if we ran this with the Speaker's Sight? Now, not only do we have an oppressively strong healing tool, but also a flamethrower that dishes out purple sadness. What if we ran this with Radiant Orb's artifact mod that grants us even more damage on orb pickup? Well, then we might just have an extremely powerful off-meta pick. So go, my minions, take to the streets, for I am out of time today, but I'll be looking for the most upvoted version of this build to try out next time. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Bless your faces and deuces.